Welcome into the Source to Say podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball and recruiting podcast on the growing KSR Podcast Network, presented by Club Blue. Club Blue is the official collective partner of the University of Kentucky. And Sean, I just walked in an hour and a half ago, and I'm running on like 3 hours of sleep after getting back from State Farm Arena at 3-ish a.m. Woke up early and hit the road to get back from Atlanta so we could get on here and do this on time. And it was so worth it. Every second of it is worth it because tonight we are going to celebrate an absolute all-time performance for the Kentucky Wildcats, giving Mark Pope his first statement victory as the head coach of the Wildcats, 77-72 over the number 6 Duke Blue Devils. Sean Smith, what's going on, buddy?
Man, I know you had a lot of fun. I certainly had a lot of fun last night. Watched a high-level basketball game, Jack, and it's been a while since I've woke up feeling this way. And we talked about which side of the bed will we wake up on this morning. We woke up on the right side of it, and it's a really good feeling.
It was one that we've had circled on our calendars. I mean, whether we want to admit it or not, whether you're the biggest Mark Pope fan or the biggest naysayer or pessimist, however you want to view it, everybody had this game circled on the calendar from the day he was hired. It was all about, we knew that he would, when we talked about our preseason predictions about, we know Mark Pope's going to be capable of beating the teams that he's supposed to, with the roster, especially that he built in year one, that it was going to be a good team that was experienced, that wouldn't shy away from the moment, wouldn't be scared of the moment, and take care of business against the teams that they were supposed to. The system and the offense was going to do a lot of the heavy lifting and, kind of minimize that margin for error. But it was going to be these matchups that we would have our eye on and say, okay, well, this is going to decide, these types of games will decide, is this going to be a good year for Kentucky? Is it going to be a very good year for Kentucky? Or is Kentucky a legitimate Final Four contender? And Mark Pope takes his team down to Atlanta into State Farm Arena, looks a national title contender in the eye, takes the first punch, responds to adversity. When you look at that first half and you go, man, this thing could get off the rails. This thing, we're clearly at a talent disadvantage here. And there is an avenue for this to go sideways pretty quickly. For them to take all of those things into account and then steamroll back in the second half en route to a gutty, gritty, unbelievable effort down the stretch of execution and unbelievable coaching and in specific play calls. I mean, it was brilliant. Just the end of game execution was absolutely brilliant to give us a 77-72 victory in a game that we've seen them lose this exact game a lot in recent years. And it just felt really, really good to be on the other end of that for a change.
They stayed the course. They stayed true to who they are. Duke really extended defensively and kind of was mucking it up and being very physical on the perimeter. I thought that was very disruptive to Kentucky for the back end of the first half. But here's the thing about it, Jack. The depth that Kentucky has really started to wear on Duke. And when you have your best 3 players for Duke all go 20 minutes in the second half straight, you already got a team that's cramping up at multiple spots. Kentucky plays Otega Oweh 19 minutes, and I can't who got the 17 in the second half. Was it Carr or was somebody else get the 17? Because it was 19 for Otega and somebody
Carr
got the
had 17, and then it was Lamont and Jackson had 13 is the most from there.
Yep, a good balance of minutes, and you got to a stretch there when Kentucky got down 6. Again, it felt like 6 for a long period of time, but I think it was the last time it got to 6, and then Brandon Garrison had his spurt. During that stretch, you had back-to-back Duke possessions, one possession where Cooper Flagg had the ball in his hands for 20 straight seconds, and he missed a pull-up jumper. And then another possession, they're trying to get some more action, and then they get a turnaround missed jumper, and they were just stalling it out because they didn't have any legs left. Like at that point, that's when Kentucky went on its surge. And you saw Mark Pope mixing and matching guys. He runs Kobe Bray in there for a few minutes. You got Brandon Garrison going on a huge spurt that I think honestly was one of the key turning points in the
I
game.
think it was. I think that was the moment that kind of defined the win for Kentucky.
And he made an incredible play going after a 50-50 ball where Kentucky got caught on a baseline drive, and I think Andrew Carr stripped it, has possession, throws an outlet pass, it gets deflected. Duke throws it up in the air. At that point, it's 50-50. If it lands in Duke's hands, who knows what happens? Maybe they get a dunk out of it or a three. Instead, Brandon Garrison goes and gets it with two hands. And then Lamont Butler downhill, and here comes Brandon Garrison again, clean it up at the rim. And then a few possessions later, he makes the block of the game. Those triples that Kentucky runs offensively, you saw Duke's doing some of the same twirls. And that was an awareness by Brandon Garrison because he defends those similar actions in practice. And he gets just enough of a piece on that it gets Jack. I'm confident if Con gets his feet set there, he probably makes that three and Kentucky's down 4. And then there's free throws that follow the next possession. So you're possibly down 5 or 6. That just getting a piece of that ball and going the other way with it was just a massive play. And I thought Mark Pope made excellent decisions down the stretch playing through Andrew Carr. I didn't know that was going to be the thing. We'll get to how we got there. But I thought for an overall grade, Mark Pope was an A+ last night in coaching. I thought the staff did an excellent job. How about them not having a timeout at the very end? And I don't know if you saw this or not, but Pope turns around on one of the free throws when Kentucky was there at the line trying to ice it, and he asked, do I take a timeout? And you see Mark Fox stand up and say, no. And it was like an awareness to say they don't have one. Do not let them have an opportunity to draw something up. That's a staff that's together and aware.
It was such a weird game. Get how we got to the finish, because when I sat there, it had the feel of both teams are exactly who we thought they were going into the game, and probably the worst way possible for that game to unfold, where the length and the athleticism and just the sheer talent was really, really on display early for Duke. And it just felt like Kentucky, it just felt like the scoring output that they had in the first half was more fool's gold, because they got 7 in that first half to keep it closer than the game really felt. Like I kept looking up at the score in State Farm Arena. I kept looking up at the Jumbotron thinking, man, we're down 14 right now. Just it had the feel that we were down farther than we actually were. And you look up and it was 6 or 8 at the 10 at the most in the first half. And you were like, it feels like we're getting cooked right now. It feels like we're getting demolished, but we're still within striking distance. And they just kept kind of chipping. And every time there was a big opportunity for a momentum shift to go kind of blow the thing wide open for Duke, Kentucky would respond with a big make, or Duke would have a wide open 3 to go up 13 or whatever, and they wouldn't be able to make that. It just felt like there were little situational moments throughout the game where it was like, whoa, we kind of stole one there. And those moments kind of kept building and building, where you were like, okay, we're getting outplayed. Lamont Butler is playing horrendously in the first half. I mean, it was a really, really poor all-around performance from him. He's doing too much. Jackson Robinson, you were having to kick him in the butt saying, go. Like, what are we doing here? Why do we have no shot attempts from Jackson Robinson, the guy who is supposed to live in this moment? I mean, Lamont Butler, the last thing we said on this show to preview this game was, I'm not concerned about Jackson Robinson. I'm not concerned about Lamont Butler. And they both, point blank period, stunk it up in the first half. So you were going, okay, so if you don't have those two core key pieces working for you in your favor in the first half, and you're still, kind of lingering, just kind of hanging around, what can happen if just they make a couple plays here and there to kind of, just kind of edge their way back in, kind of just slither back into the game in the second half? And that's exactly what they did. It just the way they responded, and talking to Mark Pope afterward, the adjustments that he made at halftime, where he just kind of said, I used the first half to collect data and just see what in the world we were kind of taking in this big moment. That was his first big moment on this stage at Kentucky as well. So he's kind of picking and prodding and prying and just kind of seeing, getting the lay of the land before really digging into the analytics, really kind of going into his adjustments at halftime and saying, okay, here's how we're going to go win this basketball game. And they do. It was just such a refreshing turn of events to see a problem and a solution in over the course of a game, not something that lasts over a week or 2 weeks or a couple of days, within the moment in a game. It was a clinic. Mark Pope coached an absolute clinic on Tuesday night in Atlanta. It blew my way. It blew my mind.
The way that they started the game and the way that they ended it, they won the beginning and they won the end. Like Duke won a long stretch there. And the thing about Pope, Jack, is he's the same up 10, down 10, up 5, down 5. Like he's the same coach. Like his emotions never change. He stays locked in. He's teaching in the huddle. The thing that Duke was doing and being so disruptive, you just have to keep cutting. You have to keep making cuts. They're jamming you. They're jamming you. They're jamming you. At some point, if you just keep cutting, it's going to loosen up. And Pope made that a point during a timeout when they went all access with ESPN. You got to hear him talking about it. You have to keep cutting. Eventually, they got some back cuts. It loosened some things up. Now, the 3-point numbers, it was the timing of when these threes were made. You go 5 for 5 to start the game, and you get that kind of that window there where you take an early lead. From that point, you hit 5 more the rest of the game. And I'm telling you, every single time they hit one, it was needed. It was a shot in the arm. It was Kobe Bryant rising and lifting, hitting one or hitting another one. Lamont Butler hit one when they needed it. Otega Owe hits one to get things going in the second half. Kerr Krissa, they go under a ball screen and he rises and lifts and hits one. And he took another one from what felt like Athens, Georgia.
That moment when he lifted for that, I said, oh, he's making this, and he's about to become a BBN legend forever. Like, he could do nothing the rest of the year. Had he made that shot, he would have. I mean, people would be putting Kirk Risa posters up in their rooms for eternity after that moment. Like, it felt like one of those big game Kirk Risa moments. He missed it, but I thought Kerr was awesome. I'm a big Kerr guy.
He was great. I thought collectively as a team, everyone chipped in and added to it. And it happened early. Colin Chandler got the early look, and then Pope realized, okay, this isn't the night, and he wants to go a different direction. I had a feeling that was what was going to happen. That doesn't mean that's going to happen for the next 3 or 4 games. We'll see Colin Chandler again, but in that moment, even Ainsley Almanor got his moment in the first half, and then he played 3 minutes in the second half, but he still contributed. He got something from everyone that stepped on the floor. Jackson Robinson didn't make shots, but he stayed engaged with his team. He was active defensively. He was active as a teammate on the bench. It was a tough night, but and this may be too early to get to this with him, but if he doesn't find his rhythm in these bigger game moments, it wouldn't shock me if maybe Mark looks at this and says, you know what, I brought you off the bench and you were really, really effective for us in the Big 12 last year. Do you feel more comfortable in that role than maybe you do in this one?
Interesting.
So
yeah,
that might be something.
Didn't even think about that.
That might be something that you get at some point, and maybe not. He lets him play through it. I mean, Kentucky gets a win regardless. Like, that's the impressive thing about this. But
I almost prefer it. Like, I almost prefer it unfold, because he had that left corner 3. And I thought that was going to be his. I kind of in the back of my head was, okay, he's been ice cold, hasn't been hunting his shot, but he's going to come up big late. He's going to have one key moment late, and it never really came. And I'm almost glad that came, because you really did just have to dig in and have an absolute zero from Jackson offensively and just figure out how to win outside of that. You're going to need to learn, how to do that and learn the identity of this team. I'm kind of glad the way it unfolded.
Well, when me and you sat down with Pope about a month ago, and I was asking him, how much comfort do you have in knowing that you know what you got in Jackson Robinson, that you can put him on the court and get production out of him? Well, he won last night's game without his one guy he brought with him producing at a high clip offensively. It was a lot of, I mean, face it, Jack, like, all those guys went into this moment with Mark Pope, and Mark Pope not really knowing how they would react and how they would respond. And they all made plays in their own way. Like, they're all unique. there was a point in the first half where you do look up and you say, wow, this is a talent gap. Like, there is a moment there athletically that Duke was doing some things, and you see Cooper Flagg and the generational talent that everybody believes is, and I think he's going to live up to it.
He's awesome, man.
And you see Khan making plays, and you're like, okay, we're not used to seeing this big of a gap when it comes to talent, but the system stayed strong. Kentucky's age and how old they are started to show up. The cohesiveness and understanding how to play and how to win. When it got late, Cooper Flagg put on his cape and he tried to go do it all on his own. John Shire is still a young head coach that has not been in. He's had a couple of years of it, Jack, but it's the seasoning is still not there. So takes a couple of timeouts late, didn't have one with 8 or 9, 10 seconds left in the game to draw something up. So here goes Cooper trying to make a play. Kentucky stays solid. I just thought it was an excellent night for Kentucky overall. And then the commitment to being who you are and making back cuts. The Jackson Robinson 3 that he missed late in the game, I don't remember who cut, but it was a good hard cut that drew 2 that got Jackson that open look. Kentucky continued to cut. Otega Oweh's basket that put Kentucky up was a back cut off of some miscommunication by Duke. But when you cut the way Kentucky does and they shoot the way that they do, you're going to get those looks. Now, the one thing that I do think Mark did an excellent job at making a decision, when Amari was in the game, his man was sitting off him in the paint. And there were so many times that Amari Williams catches the ball about 16, 17 feet from the basket and nobody's near him. And then he tries to back somebody down. I thought Mark Pope did an excellent job making a decision late in the game to play through Andrew Carr at the 5 and to put guys around him that can shoot it. And the set that they ran at the end to get the last and one, where you go the stagger action and you twirl out of it and you cross the help line, and the next thing you know, you've created a triple gap for Andrew Carr, and they recognized it on the ball fake and drive that he had a mismatch or he had somebody that he could take off the bounce, and they used it. That I don't know how many teams you're going to draw up or how many plays you're going to draw up or how many teams do this, but playing through your 5-man with the ball in his hands on the perimeter to get into an ISO, you don't see it as much. But that's where they took advantage of it. Now, the next game, Jack, it might not be Andrew Carr with the mismatch late in games. It might be Jackson Robinson. It may be Otega Owe. But good job for this staff recognizing it, finding it, and using it and making it effective.
How much of that do you think was the familiarity side of things, where this is a guy coming from the ACC, 4 games under his belt against Duke? Obviously, the personnel is not the same, so it's not just a cut and dry, like he's played Duke before, therefore you should, run through him. But he just did kind of carry himself in a different way, like being around him during pregame warmups and, back in the back tunnel, watching them kind of prepare. He kind of just had this business-like approach of like, I don't give a damn that it's Duke. Like, Duke is just a conference opponent for me. Like, he just didn't have that like, oh, big game vibe to him. It was just like, hey, I'm just showing up with my lunch pail to go to work. And for them to, immediately feed, he hits those first 2 threes, massive. And then, like you said, going small and then playing through him down the stretch, it just really felt like they kind of had a pretty clear game plan of, hey, we're going through, Andrew Carr is going to win us or lose us this game. And very fortunately, he won it for us. But I do wonder just how much of that was a point of emphasis with the familiarity. I believe in 4 matchups, he went for double figures in every single time the last 2 years against Duke. His most recent was like 18 points, 6 of 9 shooting. The dude has produced against very good Duke teams. So I wonder what, how that plays into it.
I think that's a good point. I think it's a good point. And when you're comfortable playing against someone, like, there probably wasn't a lot of nerves with Andrew Carr last night. I don't know. You have the good nerves, right? Like, before every single game, you got those good nerves. And I'm sure Mark Pope and the staff had them as well. But their game plan and staying true to who they were and then finding the area late to win it. It was about getting to the Final Four with a chance to win it. Same thing happened last year, and Kentucky couldn't finish. And there will be times when this team and this program comes up short in the final 4 minutes. That's basketball. Like, the best are going to lose games late. Now, Kentucky got to that moment last night in Atlanta, and they executed. They got stops. They grabbed rebounds. They made free throws. They made shots. They continued to cut. They did everything that they had to do to win that game. Duke did not. I thought Duke showed their youth and not knowing how they want to play late. And I think Mark Pope figured out how he wants to play late. Now, like I'm saying, Andrew Carr might not be the guy of the matchup the next time late in games that they're calling somebody's number. I think that was just something that someone recognized in that moment, and they ran an action that you don't typically see. And it occupied help, and all eyes went, and there was nobody sitting in a gap. And Kentucky got a big time momentum play out of it. Andrew Carr, prior to that, ball fake and one, made a play. Lamont Butler continuing to drive and attack the paint. Like, everybody on this team, Jack, stayed true to who they are, and nobody kind of tried to be something that they're not. And I thought that showed consistency, and I think that carried Kentucky across the finish line last night.
Is this a game, Sean, that changes your season outlook in the sense of I think this is going to be the most talented team that Kentucky goes against all season long. Cooper Flagg is the goods. I mean, it's easy to poke fun at him, back-to-back turnovers, 12 seconds left, like, he choked at the end. But the only reason why they were even in a position to win that game at the very end was because of Cooper. Cooper is insane on both ends. I mean, he's a bona fide superstar. Con Knipple is equally impressive offensively. That doesn't have the same defensive upside, but he is a certified lottery pick in his own right. And then Kamen Malawach, he dealt with cramps, but he's obviously a physically imposing guy, and Kentucky's not going to face that type of length and athleticism, vertically at least, probably all season long. So it was kind of one of those things where, as it's unfolding, it's like you're going up against Goliath, and it's just, they're throwing the talent at every single angle and facet at you, and the way they respond and recover and adapt, like Andrew Carr guarding Cooper Flagg straight up, got cooked. Barbecue chicken over and over and over again. And you're like, dude, why are we just submitting ourselves to Cooper's dominance? And then you kind of see the game plan unfolding as it's kind of, as the game's going along, and you're like, okay, it's working. Like it's not just about, hitting the home runs. It's about hitting the singles, and they just kind of kept chipping away and getting after it. So I come away leaving that game wondering, okay, if our biggest concern this year was, okay, they're going to lose to the teams that are probably better than them talent-wise, win the games just from an X's and O standpoint that they should, who will they lose to? They're going to lose. I'm not saying this is a 40-0 conversation, but it does just kind of change your, what the ceiling of this team looks like if they are able to go wire to wire with arguably the best team, most talented team in college basketball. What does that do? Changing your outlook of the Arkansas, the Gonzagas, go down the list of the all the SEC teams they'll be facing, and what that kind of changes for that outlook of the season, Sean.
Well, I think, to me, I'm not going to change. I think I had 23-8, I believe, was what I picked in the preseason, and I had this one as a win. And I think my first loss that I had down was Clemson on the road. Now, I said on an episode or two ago, I'm starting to lean and think Kentucky goes to Clemson and has a great chance to win. Now, Gonzaga's got a really good team, so we'll see going West Coast, but that's a tough week. It doesn't change my win-loss predictions, but it changes my confidence that I have in this team when it matters most, because I see a coaching staff that makes adjustments. I see a coaching staff that puts an excellent game plan together, and they're intentional with how they operate over there. And everyone is involved and in the game, and they have their job and they speak up. Like, having a former SEC head coach and a guy that's had a lot of Division I head coaching experience in Coach Fox on your bench, there to offer and chime in and offer advice on what to do. Like, Kentucky mixes it up and goes some token pressure at times. They do some different things offensively. They make some adjustments here and there coming out of the half. Like you said, it's analytically driven. Everything that this program does, it's got a blueprint to it on paper, and then it goes to the court. Jack, I think that this team is going to be one of the better ones in college basketball. Obviously, there are more talented teams from top to bottom. I thought Duke has more talent,
Mhm.
but Kentucky had a hell of a lot of grit and toughness. And if you have if you have grit and you have toughness and you have good coaching and you have execution, you have guys that understand how to play the game, you can overcome some of that talent gap. But my thoughts are more wait till he gets guys that are elite talents coming into
Yeah.
the college game in this system. But right now, what we saw last night is he put this roster together in a matter of weeks. And he's gone to the Champions Classic, an event that Kentucky has struggled in mightily against anyone outside of Michigan State in the last, 6, 7, 8 years, and he beats Duke. There's not a lot of wins against Duke. How many wins all time against Duke? Is it 4?
Uh,
78, 98,
we have the
15,
like all time.
all time,
The
right?
all time we have the all time lead 12. It was a 12-11 going into last night.
It's so many in like 60
But
years, maybe, or something like that.
yeah, it starts back in like 1930. So
Yeah. Like
but like they've lost 9 of their last 11.
So,
I think.
I mean, to
Off the top
have
of my
that,
head.
to get a win like that early in your tenure, and I've not even said it yet, quad one, because that's going to be a quad one win.
So, well, somebody said
Ding, 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 ding. Let's ring them.
somebody said that he already matched Rick Pitino's head to head with Duke all time. Like it's hilarious to me that his mentor and the guy that kind of showed him the ropes of this, he's already matched the one of the the highlights of a career.
Yeah. And look, like I said, he is so fun to watch because he doesn't and this is great advice for your team. He doesn't let one play become two. He coaches them up. It's on to the next play. There's no emotional decisions being made for Mark Pope. How calm did he look over there last night? He
It was
looked like he'd
unbelievable.
been coaching
It
at
blew
Kentucky
my
for
mind.
a decade. Looked like he'd been coaching at this program for a decade. In that
Didn't he just
moment,
carry himself
he
just
does.
like with that it factor, like, and that's what I was trying to express it. I don't think it conveyed well enough the one of the last shows that I did, but he came out for that press conference before Bucknell and he carried himself like John Wooden. Like you just as he's talking and it's like he feels like he's been in that chair for a decade, and he's been there for 2 regular season games at this point. I completely agree. Like I noticed that in real time watching last night. That it was just like, man, I mean, this is a really big moment with a lot of pressure on his shoulders, with people trying to doubt him and say that this is where you're going to get your first slip up. This is the misstep that we're waiting for, and for him to just be like, we'll see what happens.
Well, he's so calm. And the way this team was pieced together and the early additions that were put in place, the Lamont Butlers, the Amari Williams, the Otega Oways, those pillars defensively that you and I have been talking about for months, they showed up, and they showed up late. Lamont Butler is the Wolfman getting the back tip. That just was a massive play.
Yeah.
That gives Kentucky the basketball. Otega Owe comes up with a steal and gets to the free throw line. Like those guys that he built this roster around. He went defense first, Jack, intentionally, because I don't think he was ever worried about the offense. I think Mark Pope knows his system works, and his system's going to produce if he gets guys that can shoot it and he gets guys that buy into unselfishly cutting for your teammates, not for yourself. Do not cut for yourself. You cut for your teammate. And if you do that, you're going to get opportunities for yourself at the rim as well, but you're setting up some other action to get someone else open. But I thought that what they did down the stretch, I thought the defense in the second half, a little fatigue played into that too. Duke did get tired. You can go back and watch the final 8 minutes. Duke's exhausted.
Cooper Flagg said it.
And Kentucky just keeps coming at you. They keep coming at you. They don't break away from the group, right? They stayed together. Nobody tried to go do too much. Kept it around. It felt like it stayed 6 and then back to 9 for a long stretch of the game. It would get to 9, and then here comes a timely 3 by Kobe Brea, or somebody else hits a 3. Otega always started the second half with 1. Like there was always a play, and then you get, I thought, a momentum shift there. Kentucky misses a couple of layups, or not uncontested layups, but maybe shots that more often than not they're going to hit. And then Duke couldn't capitalize on it, and Kentucky keeps getting rebounds. Lamont Butler gets the 3-point play. I thought that was a big momentum shift there. And then you had Brandon Garrison spurt. I thought everything that happened was perfect timing on all of it, and you couldn't script it any better. And how about this? You kept saying they're hitting singles and singles and singles. They hit a home run late because they actually ran the home run play where everybody comes to the ball. And
yeah.
that, hey, listen, that takes some guts to throw that thing, because if it goes out of bounds, it's baseline underneath for Duke right
with
under
5
the
seconds
basket
left.
with 5.5.
Oh.
And you could see it in the huddle that he was drawing it up. He was talking to Kobe like, you don't have to throw this, but if it's there, you're going to throw this. And to have the guts to throw it, Jack, I mean, come on.
This is so fun, man. Oh, I can't believe it. You know what else is fun? Our friends at Club Blue. Club Blue is the official collective partner of the University of Kentucky. Club Blue was founded by UK fans strictly to support the NIL efforts at the University of Kentucky. Club Blue, unlike most collectives, 100% of subscriber money and 100% of donor money goes directly to NIL. Club Blue charges no fees. Club Blue subscribers receive some amazing benefits like invitations to special events, meet and greets with UK athletes, signed merchandise, monthly giveaways, ticket giveaways, Club Blue merch, and more. Subscribe today at www.clubbluenil.com. You get to pick which sport you want to support when you sign up. Choose your sport and support with Club Blue. There's somebody that brought up, Sean, the last Dawn said, if we have a bad shooting night versus a team that lights it up, we'll lose. That kind of came one of the main talking points, especially with like Duke fans saying like, oh, well, the only reason why we lost is because, Common started cramping up and we just missed a bunch of wide open looks. But I want to kind of dismiss that narrative just because you're not going to be getting teams as long and athletic as Duke shutting you down in the half court the way they were with how creative Kentucky is. Like, Duke threw the kitchen sink at Kentucky to try to get them uncomfortable, force them into uncomfortable situations on the half court, and it worked. Like, it was an excellent game plan, and you have to give credit to Duke for that. But like on the flip side, they still were able to hit threes, shooting 40% from three in this game against that in that length and athleticism. What is that going to mean when, the talent takes a step down, or the length takes a step down, or the athleticism takes a step down across? Basically, that was kind of the question I was getting at, where it's like, if they were able to thrive in the test that they got here, where is the slip up going to come from? Because I don't think it's going to be offensive. The question of, what happens if the other team's making threes and we're not? Because more often than not, they're not going to be able to defend us the way that Duke was able to. So I just have a hard time envisioning that happening, Sean.
Yeah, I do too. And here's the thing. So they shot 40% from the 3-point line. If you shoot 40% across the year, you're elite as a team in that number. So like they didn't shoot their number that they want to get to. Like if they get to that 35 to 36, then they make 13, 14 threes, if they're on pace for that. So to me, this is going to be one of their lower totals in the year at the end of the year. Like if you play, let's just say regular season, 31 games, this is their lowest number of made threes through 3 games to this point. And they still shot 40% from 3 and got to double digits. Like the 15 years prior, we saw a lot of games where it was 4, 5, 6 made threes. So getting to 10, you got there. They're going to have nights, Jack, where they're going to shoot 35 to 36 against good opponents. And there's going to be a night where they're going to hit 16, 17 threes. I fully believe that with this team. Like Jackson Robinson didn't contribute anything offensively, made shots, and they still made 10 as a team. There's still a lot in the tank for what they do. Andrew Carr made a couple this game. He hadn't been making threes early in the season in the exhibition. So he pitched in and stepped up and made shots. But it was more about the timing that they made them. But I think the area that needs to be charted more, and I've been trying to get to that today, and I will get to that as we go throughout the week and before we get into the next episode. How many easy buckets did Kentucky get? Right at the rim, just off of back cuts, rim running in transition. I can name 3 off the top of my head. Otega Oweh gets the back cut late. How about Lamont Butler's back cut early? Brandon Garrison runs to the rim. Kobe Bryant makes a beautiful pass to him. Lamont Butler gets downhill, gets 2 feet in the paint, finds Kobe Bryant wide open, uncontested layup. There's 8 points that are uncontested at the rim, and I still am missing some.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're not getting because you're not taking as many threes, you're getting back cuts and you're getting opportunities because you're running and you're disciplined. So if you're giving me that type of production at the rim and you're still shooting 40% from the three-point line, was this Kentucky's best night overall offensively? No, but they stayed true to who they were. But the story is what they did defensively in the second half. Like, we can't get lost in we talk so much about this offense, and that's what's going to get the attention. Defensively, they made plays. And they showed that early on this season through 3 games, they can get stops when it matters and they can rebound when it matters. Now, they gave up a free throw rebound, but then you get it back at the end. The ball bounced in your favor at the end. But overall, Jack, I thought it was a great night across all levels of the game and what they do. Coaching, players, offense, defense, all of it. I thought they were excellent. Cut down on turnovers in the second half, too.
A lot of talk about Adam Elkins says, do we really need to get a go get a bucket player? I'm not convinced that's a necessity. That's kind of been the taboo topic for this team since the roster was constructed. Does this team have that guy? Ortega is pretty darn good at it, just getting downhill and picking and choosing his spots. Like I think that he was really, really impressive in that regard. Equally impressive defensively. I think it was like a heavyweight, title battle between Con Knipple offensively and Ortega Oweh defensively. I just had a blast watching those two go at it. But Lamont, after a really, really tough start for him, he had a couple moments in the first half, but mostly pretty bad. And then he's probably Kentucky's best player on both ends in the second half. The way he responds, and I really love that Mark Pope pulled him to the side at halftime, just kind of wrapped his arm around him on the bench and just said, "You're Lamont Butler. Like, let's remember that you are the guy that hit a game-winning buzzer beater in the Final Four. This is nothing to you. This is these bright lights. This means nothing to you compared to where you've been and where you've come from. So let's not get lost in that." And the way he was able to respond, Lamont deserves so much credit for that second half. He was really, really, really good on both ends, facilitating, playmaking, getting the assists and not turning the ball over. Just really, really impressive performance for him. But those two are your guys that, when you need a paint touch, you're getting them. Jackson just still hasn't been that guy where I thought that there's a little bit more to him. And I still think there is. We haven't seen a whole lot of it. But beyond that, there's really not a lot to pick and choose from a guy who can be considered a bucket getter. Is that even important to you? Because we just saw them win without it.
So having a guy having a bucket getter can be a good thing and a bad thing. It can be a good thing when they're going and making shots for you, but it can be a bad thing because then you become dependent on it. And what I saw last night is a team in Duke who is very, very talented, but when it got down to it late, Cooper Flagg knows it's his team, and he tried to put his cape on and go win the game. He made a tough 2 that he got fouled on that got him to the free throw line. Great play. But then he turns it over twice, trying to do too much. And how about this? Mark Pope had Kentucky sitting on that spin move and just waiting on it. And I think that having a guy that is a bucket getter, like I said, it's a good thing, but it can become a bad thing. And for this team, I think it could become a bad thing because I just don't see a guy that clearly separates themselves as that guy for Kentucky. And I don't want Kentucky to become dependent on it. I want it to be more of a situational thing that Mark Pope figures out. This is why this coaching staff is here. They figure out the matchups and try to find it. They found it last night and executed down the stretch. It was playing through Andrew Carr. That was the execution, and that was their bucket getter when it mattered most. The next game, it may be Ortega Oweh. One game, it may be Jackson Robinson. Maybe it's Lamont Butler. I find more confidence in that than I do in just identifying one guy, because if I've got that one guy, then the defense knows it, the opponent knows it, and they're going to try to gear it and stop it. So I like being kind of unpredictable with this, and I think Kentucky's got a system that's still going to produce. You just have to continue to make cuts. If you cut and if you run in transition, you're going to loosen it up and you're going to get some plays and get some baskets, and Kentucky did.
I think Amari thinks that he might be the bucket getter on this team.
He he got put in some bad spots. I felt like
Is good, defense as well. But yeah, I agree.
he he got put in some spots where he scares me when he starts turning around shooting jump hooks and floaters that go and just fall in like
I mean,
because
he
if
shoots
the
it like
if
a catapult. I mean, it just like it. There's no law. It's just like a dagger, like a scorpion, like throwing it directly at the rim.
if the
It's
backboard hadn't
it's
have been
fun.
there, man, it would have hit somebody in section 12 right between the eyes because it but he plays so hard. He grabbed a huge offensive rebound with two hands early in the second half last night. And I might have been the Otega Owe three that got Kentucky kind of going early in the second half. But it was a game of runs, but it was also a game of a steady pace. And I thought Kentucky was just buying time for its moment.
Hmm.
And it tried to keep it close. You're just trading blows, right? I'm throwing a punch and I'm putting my hands up. And I'm throwing a punch, I'm putting my hands up. I absorb a blow, and then here we come. Here we roll. You get Brandon Garrison making high impact plays. Then you change it up. And listen, that change of pace messes with you. From Butler to Kerr is a completely different pace with the ball in their hands offensively. You got one guy that's going to play you with his shoulders, and you got another guy that's going to play you with his vision. That's a great change of pace for Kentucky on the perimeter. Kobe Bryant making shots too, like that. That was a guy that we didn't really know about 2 or 3 weeks ago, Jack, and what he could really add because we were so unsure. But he took some big shots too. Now he missed one, probably the worst miss of his career in the first half. I don't even know if it even got him near the side of the backboard, but
Hey, he was feeling it. He was feeling the moment, baby. He saw his shot and he was ready to take it, and then he had to reel himself in and go, "All right, let's take a step. Let's take it easy.
well,
I'll hit one of those, but that was not
not,
the one. I got too much dip on my chip on that one."
he lost the chip on that one. Like it's
It's when you dip and you just the whole thing breaks apart. Damn it, that was Kobe shooting from Marietta. Good on him. Matt G asked for some taking fan questions. Yeah, if you guys have some fan questions, we'll jump in here, and by doing that in return, you guys have to listen to another ad read. We're excited to announce our new sponsoring partner, WonderFan. WonderFan is a first of its kind basketball arena rewards app where fans earn real rewards simply by cheering for their favorite team. All you need to do is head to the App Store to download the app, check in once you're at the game, and let your earnings grow. It's that easy. During each game you attend, you'll earn in the background once you press start. Once you have enough earnings, you can redeem for gift cards to your favorite brands like Fanatics, Dick's, Lululemon, StubHub, Home Depot, and many more. There's even ticket giveaways and fun contests. You can use your points to enter. New rewards are added weekly. Right now, users will get 50 free Wonder just for signing up. That'll score you a $10 off Fanatics code and a chance to win tickets to the national championship, where Kentucky's going to be playing clearly. Plus, we have a special deal for listeners on this show. After signing up, head to your profile page and redeem code KSR for an additional 40 free Wonder. Again, that's code KSR. So head to the App Store, search WonderFan. That is WUNDERFAN, and start being paid for your fan loyalty. WonderFan, it pays to be a fan. I actually got to use that at State Farm Arena last night for the Champions Classic. It was an absolute blast, easy, and like the rewards are exactly as advertised. And there's a pick'em game, so you can pick Duke, pick Kentucky, pick Kansas, pick Michigan State. You're able to do that going in, and you get rewarded if your team wins. So you just keep racking up these fan reward points, and the long term rewards are absolutely awesome. It's feels too good to be true, but it's not. It's awesome. It's a really, really cool app. WonderFan, appreciate their sponsorship here on Sources Say. Let's do that. Let's answer a couple of fan questions if you have them. Do you think we should guard the whole court the whole time? I just think it helps us wear the team down faster. I mean, that's part of the benefit of having as deep of a team as Kentucky does. But I'm interested to get your take on that, because I feel like it's not necessary because of how far along the team defense is. You know, there's some individual standouts, but I really do think that they're pretty cohesive on that end right now.
So should we guard the full length of the floor the
Yeah.
entire game?
Mhm.
I think you pick your spots. And to me, it's about a balance. You find a balance of what you're wanting to do defensively, and then you make the game plan really, really hard. So if you start to simulate maybe a 1-2-2 off of made free throws, or you get into that 2-2-1 that Kentucky will show off free throw attempts. Now you've put an area to the scouting report that teams have to spend time on, Jack. And you may show that off of 4 made free throws a game, but I'm guarantee you it's eating up probably 20 to 25 minutes of practice time and prep time. So then they're taking away an area in something that they want to spend somewhere else. So to me, Kentucky's disruptive if it keeps teams off balance. I think the half court defense is really coming along. I think they showed the ability to get stops and consecutively last night. Wear teams down with your depth, and your defensive numbers look even better. Like, this is a team that's continuing. It's now climbing in KenPom, and we know last year's numbers were factored into this. But this team is starting to trend the right way in KenPom and kind of look like one of those teams that you think of. I think last time I looked, they were 20th, and that was late last night overall in
20
KenPom.
right now, 17 offensively, and 34 defensively. I mean,
Yep.
34 defensively is
And it's early.
it's
and
a
it's
good
early.
spot to be in. Yeah.
Yep, and it's good though. So, like, let's see where they are here when you get in December, but they're turning in the right direction. But I do think that they need to pick up full court when you got a guy like Lamont. Let him disrupt, run some of that full court pressure, that token pressure at times. Just be disruptive and kind of just eat up some clock. Take away the first 10 seconds of the shot clock for somebody, and then make teams have to execute in the final 20. But I'm seeing a balance and I'm seeing an approach. And once again, it's going to be driven by analytics, Jack. And Mark is going to look at this on paper and he's going to see, okay, we were really good doing this in these situations, and they're going to do more of it. He mentioned
Ooh,
power plays last night too, by the
I
way.
know, looking like absolute geniuses over here. If Troy M asked if we play Duke this Saturday, what would you set the line at? Neutral site. Oh man, that's tough.
Duke's going to be the favorite every time,
You
I think.
think?
Yeah. I still think when you're talking Cooper Flag and you're talking generational, like, he is an exceptional talent. Like, that is going to be a guy that I trust to be a star in the NBA. Don't know if Kentucky has that guy. Duke would probably be 2.5 point favorite, even though you just saw it play out on a neutral floor. That doesn't mean Kentucky don't win it again, because I obviously picked it to win it, and I would pick Kentucky to win it again because I trust them to execute. But from a talent perspective, I think the national scene views that Duke has a more talented roster at the top than Kentucky does, but I think Kentucky's more complete top to bottom.
Did you enjoy the aftermath of, I think ESPN just assumed that it was going to be a Cooper Flag show, that Duke was going to win, and it just kind of felt like they were unprepared after the fact. So I was there, so I only know based on what my, what the replay showed when I went back and rewatched it. But it just felt like they didn't know what to say because Cooper choked at the very end. Kentucky won the way they did by coming back and executing down the stretch and being the better coach team. Like, it feels like it played against all of their narratives, as Cooper Flag is the media darling, and Duke being the odds-on favorite to win the national championship. It just felt like they were uncertain with how to navigate the post game because of how it worked out in Kentucky's favor. And I just liked seeing the aftermath of the national media members kind of having to eat crow a little bit and go, oh, I just didn't know they had it in it. Like, Jeff Goodman came up to me during the game while we were down there and was like, Mark Pope's good, Kentucky's good, but they're gonna get steamrolled tonight. Like, was just so confident. And I was like, all right, we'll see what happens. I've enjoyed it a lot.
It's fun. Jay Williams, I don't know if you got to hear it. I'm sure you
I
have.
saw the clip. Yeah.
And look, that's a talented Duke team.
Yeah.
That's a very talented Duke team. But all I remember is seeing college version of Zion Williamson and RJ Barrett and Cam Reddish, and like, that was a really good Duke team too, just a few years ago. Jay played on a really good Duke team. Like, Duke has had some great talented teams. This one is up there. Like this one's up there when it comes to individual talent, and I think Con is great too.
He's awesome,
Now,
dude.
his numbers and stuff last night, I still think Kentucky was able to wear him down too. But look, Cooper, you got one of like that's a really good early season effort from Cooper Flag. Like great player. Not sure how much more he can get in the college game on his stat line, but you didn't really let multiple guys go for you. You were able to let him, he's going to make his plays. You have to just kind of tip your cap and respect it, right? He's going to make individual plays that make this team look really, really good. Kentucky just made more as a team. And this feels like one of those teams to me, just watching, and this is going back a couple eras. This feels like one of those really good Tubby teams that will guard you and execute, but they shoot it so well, Jack. And we still, in a big time moment, I promise you, they're going to go for 16, 17 made threes in a game against a really good opponent, and they're going to blow somebody out. If they commit to the defensive end the way they are and they play the numbers that they play. They played a lot of guys last night, but it was perfectly timed substitutions.
JT asks, what does a freshman-led Mark Pope team look like next year? It's a great question. Excellent question.
Is it going to be freshman-led? Or are you going to be able to pick a couple of spots and freshmen contribute? Because to me, so we talked about retention all summer. And today I had this thought that what does retention actually look like at Kentucky? Is it going to be freshmen being retained in your program all the way through? I can see Travis Perry, Trent Noah being here a very long time. I think they're cool. Yeah. I think they're cool with that. But when you go get the Caleb Wilsons, the Caden Lewises and those guys, and they pop, are they going to be 3 or 4 year guys, Jack? Probably not at that level of talent. The retention is going to be going and getting the Brandon Garrisons, the Otega Oways, those guys that are sophomore, juniors, and caught in that in between of not a freshman and not a super senior or not a guy that's got 1 year of college basketball left. That's where your retention's at. So I think next year's roster, you need Otega, you need Brandon Garrison. You know you're going to collect data on, let's say, 5 guys coming back, and then you go get an old point guard and maybe another big, and then you bring in this freshman class we're expecting them to have, and I think you got a nucleus that's probably going to be able to compete at the high level for a national championship. So you're mixing in elite talent, but you still need I think you need to be old at 2 spots in this system, the 1 and the 5. You got to be old at those 2 spots.
And I think they will be. I think they'll go and get a portal, whatever the Lamont equivalent is for next year. And that's not just like getting a defensive anchor. I think they're going to go get a leader, guy with experience playing in big games, things like that to more than anything show Jasper and Caden the ropes. So it could eventually be their team. Somebody that's not just hell-bent on getting to the draft, somebody that's not just obsessed with, one last hurrah where they rack up a bunch of stats, like just a really good glue team fit, I think is how they're going to wrap up, the portal class.
And obviously Jasper and those guys, what I'm thinking is their talent and where they are, those are future NBA players sooner rather than later. Is the balance that I think you got to find. But my goodness, Mark Pope is winning a lot of it right now, and he's certainly putting himself in position to really have a reputation in recruiting now that he's got on court success with it.
Well, I'll touch on that. I met with Caleb Wilson at his school yesterday, and just the most brilliant, calculated, transparent. You sit there and talk to him and you genuinely think you're talking to a 25, 26, 30-year-old. I mean, he was just that insightful and thoughtful with every answer that he gave, and nothing was off the table. And I asked him about NIL and like, hey, I know it's kind of a taboo topic with kids these days. Don't talk about it if you don't want to, but if you do, why is that important to you? And him just answering it in ways of saying, this is a business now. This is basically like the NBA G League in a sense, to where with NIL there is no such thing as amateurism anymore, and you kind of have to rewire your brain to kind of just think about what that looks like. And if you are a premium product, he said, like myself, I'm a top 5 recruit. then you have to view yourself and carry yourself as a premium product, and with, unfortunately, a premium price tag at times. So just the transparent, and it wasn't just about money. It was just what he's looking for with style of play, and saying that he's watching the games really closely. He was at the game last night, said that he was going to be a diehard Kentucky fan while he was in attendance. I don't know if you saw him tweet that, somebody's in the house tonight, playing up the UK saying, but just, I left that meeting thinking this guy belongs at Kentucky, that this guy has what it takes to be the brand, to have and all the answers that he were giving were like, hey, I'm feeling pretty set on Kentucky. I just need to see it with my own two eyes. I want to see them go win a big game. I want to see, Andrew Carr being used as a 4 the way that Caleb Wilson will be used next season. Those little things were so important that if that dude's not a Wildcat, he's visiting Arkansas this weekend, and if Coach Cal throws a ridiculous bag at him, then it may, the conversation may change. But that dude belongs in a Kentucky uniform, and I think Mark Pope's doing whatever it takes to land him. But recruiting is in a really, really good spot after last night. I'll just say that, Sean.
I thought you did a really good job with that yesterday. I thought that was like the perfect thing to kind of get ready for what
get your mind off
night.
of things a little bit, where it's not just total, stress with it. It turned out really, really nicely. He's just the absolute best, Sean.
Yep. Yeah, it's Kentucky's in a great spot right now. And you couldn't have scripted this, right? Like, you had the press conference in the spring and you're thinking, okay, you're at this high, and it just keeps growing and keeps growing. I didn't know if it could get any higher. And then last night it's even stronger. And I feel like this state woke up and the air was different this morning than it had been in a long time. I don't know if you felt that way. I certainly felt that way. I have confidence in what this program's doing. I have confidence in the culture that he's establishing here. This place is Kentucky, and he totally gets it. He gets it better than anyone's ever got it, in my opinion. Like, he totally understands, and every comment is intentional, that this is never going to be about him. He has said that so many times, that he is reassuring you, this is bigger than me. And he knows it. You know why he knows it? Because he was on the side of this that these kids are on. You cannot simulate that. He understands what these guys are going through and what it means to put that across their chest. And how about this? Every time those guys look down and see Kentucky, they know what they're playing for.
Oh, absolutely beautiful. That moment was beautiful. Just like future moments watching the Kentucky Wildcats in person will be beautiful. Kentucky basketball games under Mark Pope are becoming must-watch events, certainly after the latest Duke upset. But don't just watch the games. Be there with Game Time. You get the sound from the court, the feel of the crowd, and don't forget about the celebrity sightings. We got to see Megatron last night at Safe Farm Arena. That was pretty cool. That's not just Kentucky games, but all sports and events, including concerts and shows. Use Game Time and its new feature called Game Time Picks to make your life even easier, filtering out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks curation makes it easier to save more on sports, comedy, concerts, theater, and more. All-in pricing toggling this feature shows up the total up front, no surprise fees at checkout. Seat views, get panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. The lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code KSR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code KSR for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. What time is it for us, Sean? It's time to get the heck out of here, because we have 11 personnel starting right now at 8 o'clock. We're going to triple header tonight. So awesome game. You can't wait to keep celebrating this. Make sure you are subscribed here, subscribe to KSR Plus, and we'll be back next time for another Jam Packed Sources Say podcast. We will see you then.